It is your Thursday Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand. Glad to be back with you for another day and a good show coming up, I do believe. Ben Feldman from the Minnesota Wind Chill of the American Ultimate Disc League. That championship weekend will be at TCO Stadium in Eagan starting Friday. Those are the semifinals, and the Minnesota Wind Chill are in the semifinals, having their most successful season in their roughly decade-long existence. And they're hoping to make it to the championship game on Saturday. More than just that, though, just a chance to showcase Ultimate Disc. The whole weekend, the whole event is at TCO Stadium in Eagan out of the Vikings facility. A lot of other activities built around it. If you're curious what Ultimate Disc is, Ben Feldman will help catch you up to speed on what it's all about, what the Wind Chill are all about, and things like that. So that will be coming up here in just a few minutes. Lynx stuff at the end of the show and another Twins game to get to here. First, though, what did I miss? I debated whether to go there today on this subject because I wanted to make sure that it was viable, that it wasn't just, player X is available, so let's talk about player X and whether that player could be on a Minnesota team. And we do this we do this a lot. Someone gets traded, someone is available to be traded, or someone becomes a free agent, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, could they come play for the Vikings or the Wild or the Timberwolves? When really there's no, it's not connected to reality anyway. There's not a chance that would ever happen. So I wanted to make sure that this was at least a realistic proposition, that I could see this fitting, that I could, talk to some people that I trust, that know more about the Vikings before I got into this. But I want to get into the notion of Trey Lance coming to the Vikings because I do think it's at least a viable option. Trey Lance, the former Marshall, Minnesota standout quarterback, played at North Dakota State, the number 3 overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, quarterback with the 49ers, and it's not been a great 2.5 years for Trey Lance. He's had injury problems. Anytime he's had an opportunity to jump into the starting lineup and take control of that team, injuries have derailed him. And the 49ers, of course, gave up a bunch to get him. They gave up like 3 first-round picks to move up 9 spots to take Lance number 3 overall in 2021. And I believe they gave up another high pick as well, like a 3rd-round pick that year as well. So they have, a lot invested in him. But Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant in the 2022 draft, the last pick in that draft, played very well in the wake of injuries to Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo last season with the 49ers, took them all the way to the NFC title game. He got hurt, but now is healthy. He is being deemed now their starter this year and their quarterback of the foreseeable future. They've already got on Wednesday, the 49ers said that also former number 3 overall pick Sam Darnold, he was the number 3 pick in the 2018 draft, he will be the backup for the 49ers this year. So suddenly, Trey Lance relegated to at least 3rd string, where last year he was the starter at the beginning of the season. So he's fallen fast in that organization. Now they're saying they don't necessarily have to trade him, but you can look at this. The writing is on the wall. He's got this year and next year left on his rookie contract. He's not rising on the depth chart. He's still kind of in this place where he's only made 4 career starts, so he's still got potential, but you've also seen the tape, and he has not advanced in these 2 years super far, at least not enough to even be the backup this year. So he is almost certainly going to be available in a trade, and I don't think it would take a whole lot to acquire him. Maybe a middle pick in the draft, like a 4th or 5th round pick. I don't know exactly what it would take, what the 49ers want. At this point, they're going to have to cut their losses. It's a sunk cost for what they gave up to get him in the first place. So who might be a good destination for Trey Lance? Well, it's probably not a team that needs a quarterback to start right now. I don't think Trey Lance has shown that he's quite ready to be a starter right now. He's had too many injuries. He hasn't quite looked the part yet. So it's a team that maybe can offer him a little bit of a reset, a little bit of a learning year, and maybe a team that has a future potential quarterback need. Ding, ding, ding. I am talking about some other teams, but I'm definitely talking about the Minnesota Vikings. Look at their situation. Kirk Cousins under contract for this season and no more beyond this season. If you want Trey Lance to be your quarterback in 2024, or at least have the potential for Trey Lance to be your starting quarterback in 2024 when he is still on that final year of his rookie deal, you could make that happen right now for a relatively low cost. Now, I'll get to his salary cap number in a bit. It's a little bit dicey in terms of a backup quarterback or certainly a third string quarterback. You'd have to be willing to carry a decent amount of money, at least for that kind of player in the near term. But if you wanted a chance to have a mobile, young quarterback, and you didn't have to give up a ton of draft capital, you didn't have to go all the way up to the top of the draft, make a huge swing like the 49ers did 2 years ago, you could have Trey Lance probably relatively soon and relatively cheaply to beat Kirk Cousins, at least to push to push this as a possibility for the 2024 season when Kirk Cousins could potentially walk as a free agent. So that's one reason this is enticing. Two, Kevin O'Connell. He is an offensive-minded quarterback. Don't you think Kevin O'Connell would love to have a project to mold, someone who he could bring in and say, hey, we're going to make this guy great. Maybe it hasn't been a great start for him, but we are going to make him great. This is someone that we can work around. This is someone who has the talent. He just hasn't had the ability to fully realize it yet. I mean, obviously the talent is there. There's a reason he was number 3 overall in that 2021 draft. He just hasn't had the reps yet, didn't get many reps in college, hasn't had a lot of reps yet. Give him more of those reps, get him ready for the future, and that could be your quarterback for the future, and that is an offensive project for Kevin O'Connell. So you can see why, aside from the obvious he's one of us angle, played at Marshall, Minnesota, is from here. Aside from the obvious he's one of us angle, there are some enticements, there are some reasons why he would fit with the Vikings. Not as a starter this year. Obviously, this is Kirk Cousins' team, but maybe in 2024 and beyond. Now, the problem, of course, is this. If he can't even win the backup job in San Francisco, is he really good? Is he really worthy of acquiring and trying to make something out of him? I don't know, especially because salary cap wise, he would cost the Vikings about, I think, $3.7 million this year and a little over $5 million next year. That's a pretty expensive gamble. Not prohibitive, because San Francisco still has to carry some of his cap hit, but that's the portion the Vikings would have, about 3.7 this year, a little over 5 next year. So if he doesn't work out, that's a pretty expensive mistake if he ends up only being like a backup, or if you end up saying, you know what, this just didn't work out. I mean, maybe it's worth the gamble. I don't know, but that's something they'd have to carry this year. They've got about $10 million in available cap space, but that's going to go down a little bit once they do cut downs and it's the top of the roster, things like that. I don't really know where he fits roster wise with the Vikings, but you got to take the salary cap into consideration. You got to take the fact that he could not win even the number 2 job in San Francisco into consideration. And he's not been a terribly accurate quarterback over the course of his career. And I think Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings like accurate quarterbacks, guys like Kirk Cousins. They do still like guys who have some mobility, some playmaking ability, extend the play, and that is Trey Lance's game. So just a curiosity point. I'm not saying this is imminent. I'm not saying this is something that would definitely happen. But if you thought about this as a possibility like a year ago or something like this when Purdy was emerging, now you can see how, even though the timing is not perfect, how you didn't have the offseason to work with this quarterback, how the price could be right now, and how the opportunity could be right now. And if indeed San Francisco decides to cut their losses and trade Trey Lance, I do think the Vikings are at least a possibility as a destination. Twins, meanwhile, lose on a walk-off in Milwaukee. Not a great 2-game series for the Twins or their bullpen. Tuesday, they lose when Dylan Floro gives up 5 runs in the 6th inning. They lose 7-3. This one even more frustrating. They took a 6-3 lead into the 6th inning of this game. Bullpen could not hold it. Emilio Pagan gives up a 2-run homer. Caleb Thielbar gives up the tying home run. Twins get 1 in the 10th to go ahead, but give up 2 in the bottom of the 10th when tried to squeeze a second inning out of Joan Duran, one of the only relief pitchers you really trust with the Twins right now. They lose 8-7. Just now they got this stretch of games against the Rangers and the Guardians where if this is going to get out of hand, if this is going to get tighter in the AL Central, Twins are only 4.5 games up now on the Guardians. Cleveland's game against the Dodgers was suspended yesterday, although I think the Dodgers are ahead in that game Tigers did lose yesterday, so not all hope is lost. This Twins still in really good position, but this is the spot we've talked about where this could start to slip away, and you're starting to see the cracks in the bullpen. They've talked about how they have confidence in the bullpen, how the bullpen has done a good job overall this year. The bullpen's done an average job by every metric you look at, whether it's bullpen ERA, win probability added, things like that. This has been a very average bullpen this year. It's been okay. Sometimes they get it done, sometimes they don't. The bullpen is magnified more when they don't do the job than it is glorified when they do the job, but they certainly didn't against Milwaukee, and that was, an opportunity missed. Not a great way to go into this stretch, having to burn through a lot of your best relievers in that game. They start that series against Texas right away now, so I don't know. I'm still watching this stretch with curiosity, with wondering how they're going to make it through this, wondering what their lead's going to be after they get done playing 7 against Texas and 6 against Cleveland. If they come out of this looking pretty good, then I'll breathe a little bit easier on their behalf. But right now, I'm just kind of looking at it and saying, you know what? Nothing has been won yet. You got to finish this thing off before you start to get any good feeling about talking about the postseason like Royce Lewis was yesterday. I don't think they're ready or should be talking about that just yet.
MGM Wine and Spirits is the choice for savings, service, and a great selection of spirits, pre-mixed cocktails, wines, and of course, ice-cold beers and hard seltzers. With over 30 locations throughout the Twin Cities and beyond, there's an MGM near you. Head to mgmwineandspirits.com to find a convenient location in your area. Get social. Follow MGM on Facebook and Instagram for all the latest news and trends. Make great moments with MGM Wine and Spirits, your locally owned and operated choice for over 50 years. Save time, save money. Shop MGM.
Glad to be joined today by Ben Feldman. Before we started recording, Ben, I was asking how I should introduce you because you are a former player for the Minnesota Wind Chill, ultimate disc semi-pro team here in Minnesota. You are the head coach, part owner, general manager. You wear a lot of hats. You have worn a lot of hats, but the most important thing is you are very immersed in this team, and this team's had a lot of success this year, heading into now, Ben, the championship weekend, which is in Minnesota, out at TCO Performance Center in Eagan, out at the big stadium, the Vikings practice facility. Many thousands of capacity out there. Welcome to the show, and how you doing?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you having me on. And yeah, it's an exciting week for us. As we were talking about, it's 100 degrees here today. Glad the event isn't quite yet, but it's going to be a beautiful weekend. And yeah, the team's really excited. Management, owners, everyone's really excited to not only be finally playing in this event for the first time, but also hosting it. So it's been a pretty exciting, special week, and we're really pumped for Friday night.
Before I get to kind of like how this team started, like for anybody who's not intimately, doesn't know a ton about Ultimate, tell me, explain it to a listener like they have just the vaguest idea of what Ultimate is.
Yeah, so Ultimate Disc, Ultimate Frisbee. It's not. Some people get confused with Frisbee Golf or Frisbee Dogs. It's definitely not the case. It's a 7-on-7 field sport. It's played on a football field, American football field, like the Vikings. And essentially, how it works is you have 7-on-7. When someone has the disc, they can't move. So the way you progress the disc downfield is by catching and stopping, and then throwing to your teammate. And the way you score is by catching the disc in the end zone, like in football. So it's kind of a combination of soccer, basketball with the pivoting a little bit when you have the disc, and football, obviously, by catching a goal or catching a touchdown. So if the disc is thrown away or batted down by the defense, they get the disc and they get to go the other direction. So the point goes on until someone scores, and scores anywhere from 15 to 30 points per team is pretty common for a game. You got 4 quarters like in football. And, there's yardage penalties for travel. You can't travel with the disc or pull your pivot foot like in basketball. It's fast flying, lots of diving around. It's technically non-contact. I'll tell you, there's still a lot of contact involved with the game. And, some of the play, SportsCenter top 10 dives and crazy catches, jumping out of bounds to catch a disc and throwing it midair back into the playing field. It's a sport that generates some pretty special moments with the floating of the disc in anticipation. So that's a little bit of an overview, but it's for anyone who hasn't checked it out, this is the premier elite event here that we're hosting, and it's a great opportunity to maybe get your first glance at it if you haven't been to a game before or seen it live.
Semifinals are Friday, and the championship game will be Saturday. And you are in Minnesota Wind Chill in the semifinals, not just hosting this event, but has had a very successful season. I'll circle back on that in a minute. But Ben, I want to know, how did you get started playing Ultimate? I think you're a Minnesota native, right?
Yeah, so I grew up in the metro here, went to Hopkins High School and started playing my sophomore year. Was actually on the bowling team at the time, and
Hopkins has a bowling team.
Yeah. So I was big into bowling in high school. I finally got my 300 game post college. I don't bowl anymore, but anyways, I did track, and bowling was more of a fun thing to do, but it got pretty competitive. But anyways, I had a buddy on the team who said, "Hey." At camp, they had all played Ultimate, and they're like, "You got to come out to practice. Like, check this out." So literally went from bowling practice to my first Ultimate practice ever, and didn't really know how to throw. Couldn't throw a forehand. You got a forehand, a flick, and a backhand. Couldn't even was very new to it, and quickly kind of fell in love with it. So I played my sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school. There's high school leagues, and it's a club sport still, but
sure.
I mean, the size of where it's at now is crazy. The number of high school teams in the state, and but I played for 3 years in high school and progressed enough. I actually made Junior Worlds, the U19 team, during my freshman year of college. I competed on that, and then was at UW-Madison, won 2 college championships, lost in finals my fifth year, so was in 3 finals in my 5 years there, and then came back and club ultimate until pro was around, and still is very prevalent. Club ultimate players play tournaments across the country, Saturday, Sunday, 7 games in a weekend. It's still prevalent, and a lot of our players still play club. But that's kind of was the competitive grounds for play. But yeah, played there, and then had an opportunity to get involved with the Wind Chill, through the league, which was prior ownership. There's kind of transition happening. League took over the team in 2017, and kind of formed an ownership group with Omar Ansari from Surly, who's my business partner, and so played, owned, managed for a few years there, and then like I said, I had a few kids, started just coach then, got into coaching, right. And here we are, 10 seasons later with the Wind Chill. Our 10th season, finally made the Final Four, which has always been the goal, and that's kind of my progression from high school all the way into where I am now with the team. And it's been a heck of a journey, and not wearing the cleats anymore, but still heavily involved, and the passion is stronger than ever. So
what's kind of the who would be a typical player on the Wind Chill right now in terms of, I know, you have a day job. I'm sure most or all of these guys either are students or have day jobs. So what's typical for kind of the makeup of this team?
Yeah, we have guys. First, second year in college who are playing their college season, and then will join us a little bit later on. As we're a few games into the season, because that's obviously conflict in college nationals. But full-time job, middle to late 20s is a pretty common. I would say is our average. Our average age is probably in the mid 20s, and we got guys doing tech jobs, landscaping, all sorts of different roles and positions. It's to train and carry a 40-hour-a-week job, and it's a lot. So it's impressive what these guys do. The level of competition, athleticism every year in the league is increasing, and so we got some guys in their mid 30s still competing, the fresh out of college, full-time job is a very, very typical thing. These guys, we know they don't get paid a lot. The benefit relative to club ultimate and traveling around to tournaments on weekends, Saturday, Sunday, is everything's paid for: travel, perks, gear, sponsorship, benefits. They get small stipends and some incentives for games, but really it's the opportunity they're getting to be streamed, play against the best, play in front of 1,000 plus fans in a game. That's not something they're going to get through their club experience. So it's been pretty special, and it's always more fun to compete on a field when you got eyeballs on you, and we've been able to offer that, and the league is offering that in a pretty big way year over year. A lot of great growth. So
what's been the key then to success this year? You guys have won, far more than you've lost. You get to the Final Four. Like how has the Wind Chill been able to, become one of the best teams in this league?
Yeah, I mean, it's been we've been pretty successful the last 3, 4, 5 seasons with, our record each year has been really good. In the last 2 years, we had the opportunity to make this the division championship game. Played against Chicago, had to travel on the road for that game, and suffered a couple heartbreaking losses. The first one 2 years ago, had to lead the entire game until the very end and let it slip out of our grasp, literally in the final minutes of the game. And last year, just laid a little bit of an egg in the game, but down in Chicago, we had beat them. They beat us all season, and it's always nice. We know if home field advantage is nice. So going into this year, not only hosting the Final Four, it was really important to us. We got to figure out a way to get this 1 seed and host this division championship game because after going on the road twice, we knew how much was at stake this year with hosting the event, and so took care of business this year in the division. Hosted that game just a few weeks ago and beat Indianapolis in a pretty solid, convincing fashion. Had to lead the most of the game, and yeah, so it's I would say the build up and experience from the last 2 seasons and that heartbreak, and also just like some veterans on our team having been around the block. All that helps, and we got fresh young talent woven in with that experience, and it's been a fun combination. Every team in the league has a little bit of roster inconsistency throughout the season, whether it's injuries or conflicts, personal life stuff, sure, weddings running the way. We aren't paying these guys enough where we can. The expectation is there, and there's enough games where we can make it by with a few absences, but had some issues with consistency a little bit on the roster, and it's come the end of the year here, hopefully. Finally have everyone together, and we saw that at the division championship game, and we're excited to bring that here this week on the biggest field. So we're a little bit of a wild card. Everyone's putting us as the underdogs. We'll take it. Not a lot of people are picking us, but we have a lot of confidence in our home field advantage and the confidence in our guys to make an impact and make a splash this Friday against Salt Lake.
Do you have any expectations for the weekend in terms of attendance? I know there's a ton of fan stuff around both Friday and Saturday. Maybe walk me through kind of like if you're a fan thinking about going out to this, like availability of tickets, other things built around this event on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, so semifinals are on Friday. The first semifinal is going to be at 5:00. Gates open at 4:00. The TCO Stadium. Parking is going to be real easy there. So gates open at 4:00, and then our game is at 7:30. So as far as getting to the venue, not a whole lot of pregame stuff happening. The Omni Hotel, there is like bar, restaurant available there, but people will be kind of filling the stadium as we go through that first semi on Friday, I'm sure, coming out of work and things. And then by the time 7:30 hits, we're expecting to have 2,000 to 3,000 people in stadium for our game, which will be pretty exciting. We got amazing Scott, the balloon artist, comes to all of our games. He'll be there. We got a ton of food trucks, different vendor activations happening in stadium. We have some Frisbee dogs, the irony of that, the confusion, but we have some Frisbee dogs performing at halftime, which will be pretty awesome. And, we have like a 50-50 mini disc challenge, kind of like at a hockey game, throwing the puck on the ice so you can get it closest to the middle. We got a little bit of game. We're doing that, a fundraiser. So there's a lot of fun things that are going to be happening during the games and for things and families to do, disc games and yard games on the concourse. So lots of opportunity. Tickets can be bought theADL.com. You can head there. There's ticket links all over the place, but tickets can be bought online. Age 3 and under is free. 4 to 12 is discounted, and then there's adult tickets as well. You can either get a weekend pass. Weekend pass for adults, I think, is $35, and for youth, it's $20. But yeah, it's going to be a great time. And then Saturday, there's more events on Saturday. Saturday morning, we got a free youth clinic. Kids elementary through high school, there's opportunities to come out. Those sessions are from I believe 9 to 1. There's more information on the website there as well, the ticket website. But a bunch of AUDL players and other, great talent from the area, both male and female, identifying players will be there, coaching, which is great. And then on Saturday, pregame, kind of a fan fest event will be happening. Surly, Baldman Brewing, and a bunch of food vendors and other vendors will be there for, like, Viking Lakes operates like a community day event.
Sure. So
mixing that within a fan fest. So pregame from 2 to 6, we're gonna have that going on, and then there's also a mini disc golf course set up that people can do. It's a ace race. You get 3 Frisbee golf discs, and you get 3 chances to ace these miniature holes, and whoever makes the most aces or hole in ones out of their on those holes they have, I think, $500 plus in prizes available for that. So a bunch of activities going on Saturday. You can come and go, partake in what you're interested in. And then obviously the finals will be at 6 o'clock on Saturday. Hopefully we're in that game if we take care of business Friday night. But it's a lot of energy. If you haven't been on campus there at Viking Lakes, it's pretty impressive. The hotel there, and I mean, we'll have vendors all over, but definitely come check it out. It's a pretty impressive complex with the big screen and and everything. We got DJ Generation Now, who works all the Vikings, Twins, Lynx games. Vikings, Timberwolves, Lynx games. They're gonna be out there DJing on the concourse. DJ Mad Mardigan. So we're excited. It's going to be a party, and it'll be a lot of fun to come out. So if you don't have plans on Friday, Saturday night, or both, it's going to be beautiful weather, and it's going to be a great evening down in Eagan.
You mentioned Frisbee dogs a couple times. Does it bother you and other players when people kind of like don't quite get what you guys do, and then maybe they watch it and they're like, oh wait, no, this is actually really competitive, really athletic?
Yeah, it's taken some time. I think we're past the Frisbee dog thing, which is kind of funny that
I would think so.
I think that was maybe 10 years ago. Oh, is that the thing with the Frisbees or the dogs, like the Frisbee dog stuff?
Yeah, right.
So now it's more of like there's still the disc golf confusion, which is funny because, we do cross brand promote with other disc sports, and, we're doing that this weekend again. So I think between our halftime performances with the Vikings and general awareness and the Winchell brand and name, I think that's improving, which is good. But, also just there's 100 high school teams competing in Minnesota. The state tournament's massive. You got middle school leagues that are prominent now in Minnesota. So we have one of the biggest youth ultimate scenes in the country. And I think locally that confusion's going down. It's getting there, but every year it decreases. And so we're playing a little bit on that with our halftime show. Minnesota Disc Dog Club is coming out, which is pretty cool. We have they came out to our division championship game, and they're coming out for this event. So, but yeah, that stereotype is decreasing every year. It's still work in progress, but the next generation of folks and millennials, I think, are a little bit more familiar with it, just with intrinsically how much it's been around in the last couple of decades. So.
Is there any data or any kind of anecdotal evidence that explains the growth? I mean, I've played it before. I think it's fun. I think it's really cool. Is it, the athleticism plus, you take out the head injury risk, things like that. I'm just trying to imagine like what aside from just the sport is really awesome is fueling this growth in your mind.
Yeah, I think, it's a couple things. I mean, part of it is the ease of entry. All you need to play Ultimate is a couple cones to mark the end zones and a disc, right, and some cleats. So relative to hockey or other sports, football that require protection and pads and all those things, I mean, Ultimate is pretty easy to just pick up and go play at a park. So I think that's helping us grow. The other aspect, which is unique at every level of the sport except for pro, which we do have referees for pace of play. With spectators in the crowd and everything, keeping things moving along. But at every other level of sport, there's no referees, so it's self-officiated. Spirit of the game, the concept of calling your own fouls and sorting that out with your opponent has been a big focus for the sport that I think has grabbed a lot of interest, especially at the youth levels. And in our sport, in the AUDL, at the pro level, we have the integrity rule, which you'll see invoked pretty regularly, actually, sometimes multiple times a game, where a player might overturn a referee's call on a foul, or, they hit someone on a throw and the ref didn't see it, right? And they'll say, hey, integrity, they'll overrule it. So there's still aspects of that we get in our sport that you're not going to see in a lot of others. And I think that's something that makes it pretty sticky and engaging especially as parents are thinking about sports they want their kids playing growing up. I think that's helped. But the head injury stuff, and there's still some non-contact and joint, knee, all sorts of stuff, people diving around, but the head injury stuff is definitely one with soccer and football. I think that has become more of a topic, and there's been more issues with it. And I think that's one of the items that's been more beneficial. The frequency of those head injuries is definitely lower in Ultimate, and that might help us as we progress going forward with continued growth as more information comes out about that, or that becomes increased focus.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that there was the self-officiating piece of it. I can imagine, like, anytime you're just playing pick up anything, it's kind of self-officiated, but to rise in those levels and to have those integrity rules, that's pretty cool to me. That's interesting that's a facet of it. Has that always been the culture, or has that evolved over time?
Yeah, it has been since the sport was kind of in the 60s, 70s was created. It was always the self-officiation aspect. Players call their own fouls, and as the level of competition increases, they do have observers involved in a lot of games that if there's a dispute that can't be resolved between players, they'll go to an observer. But it's not active refereeing. So in-out calls, there might be some active calls with that. Players sometimes aren't very equipped to properly answer that, even if they want honest Abe trying to do it. It's tough, right? Defender and offender going for a disc out the back of the end zone. Did they get the toe down? Sometimes it's tough. So that's evolved a little bit. And, but yeah, you still see it's a challenge. You got competitors out there. So as the stakes increase and grow, it's going to be harder and harder to retain the true spirit of the game aspect of originally of once it was, because people are carrying more and more and there's more on the line. So with sport in general, it's been a topic of conversation at those levels, but there's still very clear aspects of it you see in the pro level, just from how players were raised and playing. And hopefully we retain that, because I think that's good. A good thing to have, and does make us a little bit unique relative to some other, professional sports. So, it's been the foundation of the sport. It's definitely one of the uniquenesses of Ultimate.
Very cool. Well, Ben Feldman, appreciate everything here. Good luck to the wind chill this weekend. Good luck to the whole event out at TCO Stadium in Eagan. Great chatting with you today, and we'll talk to you down the line sometime.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Whether or not you are a Ultimate Disc enthusiast, or if you maybe know nothing about it, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Ben Feldman, and consider checking this out this weekend. Sounds like a pretty cool event. Should be a lot of energy out there, and you know what? There's a Minnesota team with a chance to win a championship, so that's always fun as well. So I hope you can maybe find space in your weekend. Looks like it's going to be some nice days, some nice nights on Friday and Saturday. Get out to TCO Performance Stadium out there in Eagan and check out the American Ultimate Disc League Championship weekend. Let's finish quickly with the cooler. The Lynx and Dallas played a rather contentious game a couple of nights ago. Some ejections, some fan behavior stuff. If you watched that game or heard about it and were curious about it, you should probably watch Thursday as well. The Lynx and Dallas in a rematch just a couple of nights later. We'll see if the bad blood, if the tension spills over. Probably not. A lot of these times where you look at this and say, hey, these two teams play again, what's going to happen? Nothing really happens aside from a game, but I'm curious about it. I'll be paying more attention to Thursday's game with the Lynx and Dallas than I might otherwise, and we'll see if the bad blood spills over into this one as well. Big game for both teams in the playoff race. Both teams in playoff position right now, but trying to secure better spots in the WNBA playoffs. And that'll do it for me. And speaking of playoffs, Minnesota United manager Adrian Heath will be my guest on Friday's show. That team trying to make a push towards the postseason, trying to make it for the 5th consecutive season. He'll join me to talk about the year, about challenges, about all sorts of stuff ahead for the Loons. So hope you enjoy that and get ready for that on Friday's show. Until then, I'm Michael Rand, back at it again tomorrow.